Wonderful, wonderful. Well, good morning and thank you for the introductions. I appreciate everyone who is here today. I am very excited to bring this information to this wonderful group today. I'm always excited about talking about the Ombudsman program. But anyway, I hope the information that I provide to you today will be helpful and informational to everyone. So again, my name is Yuri Martinez, and I work with the Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program of Tarrant County, which is part of the Area Agency on Aging and the United Way of Tarrant County. I have been with the program working as a certified long-term care ombudsman for 14 years. Let me correct that. I've been certified as a long-term care ombudsman for 14 years, but the first year was as a volunteer. So I started out as a volunteer, and then the opportunity came up to become part of the staff, and I've been there ever since, been here ever since. Love every minute, love talking with the residents, the interaction, the facility staff, and help when possible. So that's a little bit of my background. Today, I'm here to give you information about our program, about the long-term care program. So can we go to the next slide? My hope today is for everyone in this meeting to understand the role of the long-term care ombudsman at the end of this presentation, to be able to identify, characterize types of concerns where ombudsman involvement is appropriate. Also to understand that the ombudsman consent and confidentiality requirements, and to identify some advocacy tools that will enhance resident empowerment, identify benefits of being a volunteer, and discuss a few of the volunteer requirements as well. I'll briefly cover those last 2 points, but mostly we'll be focused on the overall role and purpose and mission of the Ombudsman program. Next slide, please. Okay, so the long-term care ombudsman program seems to be a bit of a mystery every now and then. You know, in the community, a lot of people tend to have questions about the ombudsman program. Many times families aren't aware of the ombudsman program. Residents, just my experience has been that when I say the word ombudsman, it just kind of, is a confusing term. So the Ombudsman program is basically an advocacy service for residents of nursing homes and assisted living facilities. That's where our jurisdiction lies. This program is mandated out of the Older Americans Act. Therefore, it is in every state of the United States. Every state has one, and it is also, again, it's federally mandated and it's state mandated. So another thing about the program is that it is independent of any facility. It's a free service. And again, it's available not only statewide, but nationwide as well. So every state has a program wherever a person may be living in a nursing home or an assisted living facility in any part of the United States. There should be an ombudsman program that is assigned to help in different situations. And we'll talk about those circumstances in which we may be involved. Next slide, please. So here is the structure on a state level. I briefly discussed that the nation structure is basically that we have a program in every state. However, the structure by state varies. So in Texas, the program is headed by the State Ombudsman Office, and that office includes the State Ombudsman, 5 ombudsman specialists, and an office manager. The Office of the State Ombudsman is responsible for certifying all long-term care ombudsmen throughout, which includes volunteers and staff. They provide the support and management of all programs throughout the state. With that being said, we are a very large state, and there are 28 local ombudsman entities throughout the state. And if you're asking yourself, well, we have a lot more counties than that, Yuri, So the makeup is basically some programs cover more than one county. So some programs are going to cover multiple counties, and other programs are going to cover, one county. With that being said, the Tarrant County program, we only cover Tarrant County due to the size of our area. Dallas, the same. Dallas covers only Dallas County, and then we have a third program in our area, the North Central Texas Council of Governments Ombudsman Program, and they cover 14 counties around Dallas and Tarrant County. So in any situation, if anyone is having trouble finding who their ombudsman is, or what program is assigned to your particular facility or your area, there is a directory of long-term care ombudsman online. It's published online, and anyone has access to that. You look up your county, and then it'll have contact information for the main office for that program. Each local program is managed by a managing ombudsman, and is made up of both staff as well as volunteers. Wherever, so again, wherever there's a nursing home, there's an ombudsman assigned. Same with assisted living. Now, some facilities may have more than one ombudsman assigned, simply because there may be a volunteer ombudsman that's assigned to that facility as well. I'll get into that just a little bit here in just a second. Larger programs may have additional staff ombudsmen, and volunteers receive the same training as staff ombudsmen. There are several differences, of course, with the volunteers and the staff. For example, volunteers are only assigned to 1 or 2 homes, whereas staff are assigned to an entire area. Staff visit facilities daily. Volunteers don't visit facilities daily. The frequency is different. So a few differences there. But going back to the structure here locally, I'm just going to give you all detail for perspective. The Tarrant County program currently has 8 people on staff, and 16 volunteers, and 3 in training. We have a county of over 200 facilities. So that kind of gives you an idea of the numbers and what we're looking at in terms of having the caseload and our assignments. Again, that's 8 staff and 16 volunteers with 3 in training. We hold a training every quarter. So that way people in the community have an opportunity to go through the training and become, again, certified volunteer ombudsman. So the 8 staff ombudsmen are divided amongst the entire county. So we each have a different area that we cover. And you're always welcome. I will provide the main phone number for the Tarrant County Long-Term Care Ombudsman Office. And you're always welcome to call that number and ask questions. If you're unsure who the ombudsman is that's assigned, or just general questions, specific questions, you're always welcome to call that number. And if we don't have the answer, we'll try to help guide you in the direction where you can obtain an answer. Next slide, please. So with that being said, let's talk about what the ombudsman actually do. So ombudsmen provide services basically to protect the health and wellness of the residents, and to promote quality of care and quality of life for those who live in nursing homes and assisted living facilities. In a nutshell, we provide information and assistance on a variety of topics to different audiences. For example, to residents, we may discuss residents' rights, we may discuss quality of care, we may even provide them with outside resources when needed. For facility staff, we also provide information on a variety of topics. Sometimes it's something as simple as talking with a new staff person about the role of the ombudsman, or perhaps discussing residents' rights with a staff person. And other times we provide education in more of a group setting in the form or fashion of an in-service to an entire facility staff. We also talk with family members and other providers, again, about just a variety of different topics that are related to the care of the residents. We work to identify and investigate and try to solve problems. And we also represent residents in different ways. Sometimes that may be in a fair hearing for a discharge. That may be through support in a care plan meeting, or perhaps in a meeting to address concerns with the facility, are just a few of the examples. And lastly, education. Education is also a part of what we do. Again, we provide community education, facility education, and also on an individual level as well. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we often talk to people about is, when is it appropriate for ombudsman to help? When can ombudsman help? If situations have the residents' rights, so perhaps it's a violation of the residents' rights on part of a provider or the facility, then an ombudsman can be asked to engage in a situation like that. Other topics may include quality of care issues, quality of life, some family issues, problem solving, of course, with the ombudsman trying to help the facility and the residents come to an understanding about whatever the problem may be. Discharge questions are definitely appropriate for the ombudsman. Again, staff and services. Now, we are limited in the topics of staff and services for the fact that we are not experts in every area of care. For example, anything that has to do with medical training, we would, we would pass on that and provide the facility a resource that they can use perhaps to provide that education, such as maybe the joint training or the quality monitoring program or other resources available to the facilities. We also provide support for resident and family councils as well. Not only in the form of presentations or education, we also have resources and documents that we can provide to groups to help them get started, to provide support and education about what the council's purpose is, and just general guidance for both groups. Next slide, please. So this may not be the best example, but it's definitely one that most nursing homes often run into. And an example of a complaint that we may get, and keep in mind, this may come from anyone. It could be the facility calling the ombudsman, it could be the resident, it could be the family, any legally authorized representative, whether it's family or not. The complaint or the concern can come from a variety of sources. So here we're talking about a resident who has a different bathing preference, right? So this would be related to residents' rights, and it would be an appropriate situation for an ombudsman to engage in this particular situation. Next slide, please. Okay, so the Ombudsman program has very specific consent and confidentiality rules. And it's very important for the resident to understand what those are. Obviously, it's very important for us ombudsmen to abide by those, but it's also very important for us as ombudsmen to convey this to the facilities so that facilities know. Sometimes we're not able as ombudsmen to disclose a resident's identity. So that although identifying a resident may help the facility to resolve a concern more quickly, sometimes we're not able to do that because we have those restrictions, if that makes sense. So as ombudsmen, we must have permission from residents to help them with any concern that they have. So that first bullet point is, we have to have consent to work on a resident's behalf. We must obtain consent from a resident to access records, and that includes verbal consent. If a facility has, a form that must be filled out by the resident, that's fine. But again, as far as for the Ombudsman protocol, we can work on a resident's behalf just based on verbal consent from either the resident or their legally authorized representative. And we have to have permission from the resident or their legally authorized representative to identify the resident that's involved in any concern, whether that's, their name, their room number, just any identifying characteristics of that resident. Next slide, please. So now that we have talked about, kind of our role and what we do, and kind of covered an example of a concern that may be appropriate for us, let's talk about some of the things that ombudsmen are observing during visits. These are just a few examples. So basically, we are looking at environment, we are looking at residents, overall, how they generally look, if any resident is in distress. As far as the staff, are our staff engaging with the residents appropriately? Are they identifying themselves with the residents? What is the situation with privacy for the residents and our staff, honoring that privacy? How is the treatment between staff and residents? And then just in general, kind of the overall demeanor of the staff, the residents, and how things look in general in the facility. Are the residents being treated with kindness? Are they being asked about preferences? If we are there during a mealtime, we observe meals. So there's a variety of different things that we're observing. But as a facility, if you ever have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to your ombudsman. And again, if you're unsure of who your ombudsman is, you can find out different ways. You can call our office in Tarrant County, and we'll be glad to tell you how to get your assigned ombudsman's contact information by looking it up on the directory. And if it is in our county, then we will certainly have an assignment list, and we can tell you exactly who it is and give you their contact information and put you in touch with them. Next slide, please. So before I wrap up my presentation, I'd like to briefly discuss the volunteer program. Our volunteer program consists of a certification training. So anyone who is interested in volunteering must complete an application. Again, I'm responsible for the volunteer program. Therefore, anyone who's interested or has any interest in learning about the Ombudsman program would reach out to me, and you all are welcome to share my information with anyone. I'm happy to talk with anyone and answer any questions about that. But basically, our program consists of a 36-hour certification training program that is a state training. It consists of not only classroom training, but also on-site training for those people interested. The qualifications are basically the person must be able to get to the facility, so have their own transportation, be 18 years or older, have no conflicts of interest, and pass a background check. Those are the main requirements. And then last but certainly not least, have a genuine interest in advocating for those in the nursing facilities and the assisted living facilities. We do ask for 1 year commitment at least to the program. The continuity with the ombudsman, as you all well know, just with care in general, is very important. So we always ask for at least a year commitment, if and when possible. With that being said, I have a few volunteers currently who are going on 10 years and 8 years and 9 years. So we keep our volunteers. We like to keep our volunteers for a long time. And so obviously with the pandemic, you know, we had some challenges, but we haven't stopped providing the trainings. So just so you know, trainings are provided every quarter. Anyone can go online on the United Way Area Agency on Aging of Tarrant County website, click on the Ombudsman program, and you will find more information about the volunteer Ombudsman program. There's an interest form on that webpage that people can complete with their name and phone number and email address, and that will send me, and that will send an email directly to me, and I will respond to the person that way. So with that, I'll leave you with the program's contact information. This is the Tarrant County Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, and the main phone number is listed on this slide.
Thank you so much. We just threw out the Texas main number, which is a 1-800 number, into the chat. So that's available as well. And for those who might have joined mid-presentation, please throw your name, facility email into the chat for attendance, and please unmute and ask Yuri your questions. Are there any clarifications needed on what she presented or other concerns that you might want to discuss?
I have a question. I can start. Yuri, could you speak to the relationship of the Ombudsman program and state regulations?
Yes, of course. So I tell people we're like a cousin of the state regulatory department. So the regulatory department obviously is compliance, and the Ombudsman program, our role and our purpose is to try to help resolve situations with any concerns that might be related to the care or quality of life of the residents. Very similar but different in that we don't visit a facility only to address complaints. We make facility visits in order to just do sort of like wellness visits, right? And so with that sort of background, our relationship with regulatory is that we collaborate on a variety of levels, not only on individual concerns, but also on more of a macro level, like systems advocacy and things like that. One example of collaboration might be if a surveyor is in a facility, we have an agreement. If a survey team or a surveyor is in a facility to do an investigation, whether it's a complaint investigation or an incident report investigation, we have an agreement for that team to contact the Ombudsman program. And the Ombudsman program has the obligation to collaborate with regulatory if we have any information related to the situation. Okay, so that's sort of our relationship. We meet at least once a quarter to discuss any patterns of maybe issues going on. I am so sorry. I'm right by the base. Y'all might have heard something in the background. I had to stop to make sure that y'all could hear me. But yeah, that's basically the relationship with regulatory is we collaborate on a variety of issues. We reach out to them if we need answers. Also, in the recent years, they have made some changes, and they have what they call facility liaisons. And the liaisons are available to all facilities for compliance support. And we sometimes reach out, you know, as ombudsman to those liaisons to ask regulatory questions on behalf of facilities, or we refer the facility to whoever their assigned liaison is to help with, you know, providing information or answering questions about compliance or regulation. So, you know, those are just, again, a couple of the examples where we get involved with regulatory.
Thank you.